Okay, thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you're new here to this channel and you like what you see at the end, if you would like to share it, comment it, subscribe it, like it, whatever, I'll appreciate it. If you're back again, thanks a lot. I'm going to show you how to make a beaver board without any patterns or anything. All you're going to need is, well, basically you need a piece of plywood, and the plywood I have is 3/4 of an inch thick. Took a bunch of recommendations from people. I actually ended up getting birch plywood for cheaper than just regular sheathing grade plywood. It was $2 a sheet cheaper, so I got birch plywood. It's nice and easy to write on and everything. So got birch plywood. I cut one sheet into 3 sections, 32 inches by 48. I can board 6 beavers on here, one on each side. So let's get to what I'm actually wanting to focus on here. To do this, all you're going to need is a hammer and some nails. And if you're boarding beavers, if you don't have that, you're already behind the 8 ball, because you need a lot of nails to board a beaver. So you need a hammer and nails. You'll need a tape measure. But once you make all this stuff, you won't need the tape measure. And I like to use a couple Sharpies to make my marks with. I made my dividing marks here. I took my board. So it's basically cut into quarters, 16 inches in this way, and then it's 2 foot in from the other way. So it's basically gridded off into 4 congruent rectangles. So, and this is the dead center of the piece of plywood. So now how are we going to do this? Basically, a beaver is stretched in ellipses, not circles. So if an ellipse is just slightly more complicated. It's not even that complicated, really. A circle is not that complicated. If I wanted a circle in a certain diameter, I could take a nail and put it in the middle of something and take a string, and I could just go around in a circle. It's all points equidistant from some center point. Ellipse is just sort of a flattened out circle, if you want to get technical math terms. And if you want to see any of this, how I come up with this, in your it'll be a sort of a nerdy, truly nerdy video. But if you want to see how I come up with all these numbers, I'll make a video on that on the math behind the ellipses and stuff. So an ellipse is sort of like a circle, but you don't have just one point. You have to have 2. They're called focus points or foci or foci or something like that, something weird. But basically you have to have 2 points to hook your string to, and you're still going to pull the string tight, and it'll make an ellipse. And you'll see this happen here, and I'll show you that these marks I have trace almost exactly on the marks on this this pattern right here. This is all I had to start with, and I know they sell the one with the slots in them for 20 bucks, but I'm too cheap, and I did have an Algebra 2 class, so I figured I'd just make this thing. So I'll show you how it traces right along here. So now first let's go over the measurements of the stuff you're gonna need. I fudged around with these numbers, so it made it sort of like a nice pattern. If you wanted to make, if you got giant beavers, like I see some people with 60+ pound beavers, you could literally just make a 9th string and a 9th set of focus points. Basically, the strings just follow 3 inches larger than the first one. The first one is 23 1/4, 26 1/4, 29 1/4, 32, and so forth. 35 1/4, 38 1/4, 41 1/4, 44 1/4. If you wanted to do a 9th loop, you would need a bigger piece of plywood. Even the 8th loop comes off the edge on the 32-inch piece. You could just do 47 1/4. If you wanted a 10th loop, you could do 50 1/4 you want. You could just keep adding 3 inches to this. That's pretty easy right there. So the actual strings, I used a mason string or whatever. If a little tip on making the string, this is probably the most difficult part for me. It was making these strings the correct length. But I learned that once I tied one loop, I would put a nail here and just pull it slightly snug, not crazy tight or anything. And when I made this loop, like for the very first one at 23 1/4, and this is just the way I tie my knots. It might work for you, I'm not sure. If I pulled that loop, the second loop, right to the 24-inch mark, 3/4 of an inch past, and then I made this knot holding that tight, I lost 3/4 of an inch almost every time. So that was just something I figured out with this type of string, the mason string. If you use a different type of string, it might work out different for you, but I just had some of this laying around. So I already have my 8 pieces of string ready to go. The second thing we need are the focus points. This seems like it takes a long time, but once you make this stuff, making the actual board It doesn't take that long at all. I got just a scrap piece of, I think it's doorstop right here. It actually worked pretty nice. I basically got a center point right here. I got it upside down. Oh well, that's supposed to be a C. I'll flip it this way. There we go. There's my center point. And what you do is you measure these focus measurements in each direction, to the left and to the right. You can see over here to the right, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And over here to the left, I got the same thing going on. So, what are these measurements? So you're going to start from the center in the very first number 1 right here. See if I can prop this up here a little bit. Coming out to number 1, each direction is 6 5/8. Number 2 is 7 3/4. Then it goes to 8 7/8. 4 is 10 inches. 5 is 11 1/8. 6 is 12 1/4. 7 is 13 3/8. And number 8 is 14 1/2 inches. You make those 8 strings, you make this stick, and you're set to go to do this. Yeah, if you wanted a 9th string, like I said, you would add 3 inches here and have 47 1/4. If you need the 9th set of focus points, these all, I fudged around with these a little bit, and I got a pattern going here. It's 1 1/8 you keep adding to this. So after 14 1/2, you will go to 15 5/8. If you wanted a 10th one, then you could just keep adding 1 1/8. I don't think I'll go past the number 8. I don't think so. That'd be a big beaver. Okay, so now let's get into how we actually make this. I'm going to clear some of this stuff off of here. So I have my cross in the middle of my plywood. I line my center mark up right with that cross, left and right here. Now I don't need a tape measure anymore. So I'm going to make marks at 1 through 8 to the right here, 1 through 8 to the left, and then we're going to tack in 16 nails. Alright, so I got my 16 nails going left and right. Got my 2 different colored markers. And now I'm just going to show you how this follows the pattern, so you can be slightly confident in my calculation. So here's the pattern right here. I got that thing lined up. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. This is my number 1 string. I'm going to hook it on the number 1 nails. And I'm going to do this with pencil. This pattern doesn't belong to me. I got to return this to a guy. I hooked that pencil up here. Hopefully this shows up here. It follows right along that number 1 line. If I pull this one off, I'll just show you another one here. I'll pick up, say, here's the number 5 one. I actually put little notches or little marker things here. I got 1, 2, 5 marks here. So if I come out to the 5th nail, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to show you this follows the 5th line, 3, 5. Right here is the 5th line. Right around she goes, right on that line. That's basically what an ellipse is. It's all points so that, oh well, never mind, I ain't going to give some crazy definition. Actually make our marks, and I just rotate from black to red. That way I can differentiate what one I'm on. Once you got that here, let's go this way. I go that way. Switch over to the other side here. I pull off that number 1 string. Pull out the number 1 nail so I don't get confused. I grab my number 2 string. Put on the number 2 nails. Get my red marker. Now we'll make a red one. Do one side. Number 2 line is done. Grab my number 3 string. Now here's another tip with the strings. This one turned out to be a little bit long once I tied both my knots. So I just tied an extra little knot in there and that took up the slack. Okay, so here's my finished product. My 8 ellipses drawn. It does not take that long. For real, if you don't have to do a bunch of yakking and bending over a camera, you make 8 marks on each side, pounding 16 nails, and you draw 8 ellipses. It's pretty quick, really. Okay, so I flipped the board over, and I just wanted to see how long it would take me to do it without yakking and trying to trip over the camera. So it took me 6 minutes without getting into a giant rush to put all 16 marks on, put 16 nails in, and draw the 8 ellipses and pull the nails out while I was going. So for me, that wasn't too bad, and I'm happy with the way they're turning out. So, thanks for watching. If you got any comments, let me know. And again, if you want to see the actual mathematics behind this, let me know. I'll make a really boring video of that.